Princess Valara stood in the grand hall of the Kryn Imperial Palace, her forearms crossed in disgust. The purple scales along her neck flared bright with anger, a clear sign to anyone watching that she was furious. Around her, the Council of Elders sat in their ceremonial armor, their ancient faces unreadable. "You cannot be serious," Valara said, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. "You want me to marry one of them? A human?" Lord Kavesh, the eldest of the council, leaned forward on his throne. His battle scars told stories of 100 victories. "The war with humanity has cost us 3 entire fleets, Princess. They fight differently than any race we have ever encountered. This marriage will bring peace." "Peace through surrender." Valara's tail slammed against the marble floor. "The Kryn Empire does not bow to anyone. We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. We have conquered star systems while these humans were still learning to build rockets. And yet," another elder spoke softly, "they have held us to a stalemate for 5 years. Every battle costs more lives. Every victory feels hollow. The war drains our resources." Valara wanted to argue more, but she knew the truth in those words. She had fought in the border conflicts herself. The humans were strange opponents. They did not fight with honor like the Kryn. They used tricks, ambushes, strategies that felt almost cowardly, but they were effective. Terrifyingly effective. "The human government has agreed to the marriage alliance," Lord Kavesh continued. "They have selected a suitable candidate. He arrives tomorrow." "What kind of warrior did they send?" Valara asked, trying to find some hope in this disaster. "At least tell me he is one of their battle commanders, someone worthy of respect." The elders exchanged glances. Lord Kavesh cleared his throat. "The human they selected is named Daniel Cooper. He's described as a gardener." Valara's purple scales flushed dark blue with shock. "A gardener? They mock us with this choice. The human ambassador assured us he is a man of good character and high standing in their society," an elder explained weakly. Valara turned and stormed out of the council chamber. Her attendants scattered as she passed, knowing better than to approach her when she was this angry. A gardener. The greatest insult imaginable. The humans were laughing at her, the entire Kryn Empire. The next day, Valara dressed in her formal battle armor for the meeting. If she had to endure this humiliation, she would at least look like the warrior she was. The armor was black and silver, decorated with the markings of her 17 victories in combat. Her ceremonial blades hung at her sides, even though she knew she could not use them today. The human ship landed in the diplomatic bay with surprising grace. It was smaller than she expected, not a warship, but something the humans called a civilian transport. More insults. When the airlock opened, Valara's first glimpse of Daniel Cooper confused her. He was tall for a human, with dark hair starting to show gray at the temples. He wore simple clothes, not armor or even formal robes. Just plain brown pants and a white shirt. He carried a single bag and what looked like a potted plant. "Princess Valara," he said with a slight bow. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "It is an honor to meet you. I brought you a gift." He held out the potted plant. "It is a rose from Earth. They are difficult to grow, but beautiful when they bloom." Valara stared at the plant like it might explode. "You brought me a plant. I know it seems simple," Daniel said with a small smile, "but I thought it might brighten your quarters. Gardens have a way of bringing peace to troubled hearts." "My heart is not troubled," Valara snapped, "and I do not need a human to bring me peace." Daniel simply nodded, still holding the plant. "Of course. My apologies." His calm acceptance of her rudeness somehow made her angrier. She wanted him to fight back, to show some spirit. Instead, he just stood there with his plant and his quiet smile. The wedding ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later. During that time, Valara avoided Daniel as much as possible, but the neutral station where they were to live was not large, and she kept running into him. She found him in the observation deck staring at the stars. She found him in the recreation area, reading books on a digital pad. She found him in the small garden section, already planting his rose and humming softly to himself. Each time he greeted her politely. Each time she responded with cold silence or sharp words. Each time he simply smiled and went back to what he was doing. "Does nothing anger you?" she finally demanded on the second day, cornering him in the garden. Daniel looked up from the soil he was working. "Many things anger me, Princess. Cruelty, injustice, waste. But you speaking your mind is not one of them. You did not choose this marriage." "Neither did I. Your anger is understandable." "You speak as if you are calm about being forced into marriage with an alien." "I chose to accept the proposal," Daniel said, returning to his planting. No one forced me. My government asked, and I said yes. Why? The question escaped before Valera could stop it. Daniel was quiet for a moment, patting soil around a small seedling. Because I am tired of war, Princess. If my marriage can help end one, then it seems like a good trade. You speak of war as if you know it. Everyone knows war in some way, Daniel said softly. Some just know it better than others. The wedding day arrived too quickly. Valara wore traditional Kryn ceremonial robes, deep purple with silver threading. Daniel wore formal human clothes, a black suit that actually looked quite dignified. The ceremony combined both cultures, with Kryn battle drums and human music mixing in strange harmony. When it came time to speak the vows, Valara said the words like she was reporting for military duty. Daniel spoke his with genuine warmth. When the ceremony ended, they were declared bonded by both Kryn and human law. At the reception, Kryn warriors whispered and pointed. Some of her own people laughed behind their hands at her soft human mate. Daniel seemed not to notice, or if he did not care. He ate the strange foods, politely declined the Kryn fighting wine, and thanked everyone who approached with congratulations. Late that night, in their new shared quarters, Valara finally spoke. I will fulfill my duty to this marriage, but do not expect love or even friendship, human. You are a means to peace, nothing more. Daniel nodded from where he sat reading. I understand, Princess. I ask only for basic courtesy. The rest will unfold as it will. His acceptance felt like defeat somehow. Valara went to her sleeping chamber and sealed the door, wondering how she would endure a lifetime married to a man who seemed to have no fire in his soul at all. The days on the border station fell into a rhythm that Valara found increasingly frustrating. Each morning she woke at dawn and went to the training halls. She practiced with her blades, worked through combat sequences, and sparred with the other Kryn warriors stationed there. The physical exertion helped her forget, at least temporarily, that she was trapped in this marriage. Daniel woke early too, but for different reasons. While she trained, he tended his growing garden in the station's botanical section. He had expanded beyond the single rows, bringing in seeds and cuttings of various earth plants. He spent hours there, carefully watering and pruning, talking softly to the plants like they could understand him. They shared meals together because protocol demanded it. Valera ate quickly, treating food like fuel. Daniel ate slowly, savoring each bite. He tried making conversation at first, asking about her training or her homeworld. She answered in short, clipped sentences until he stopped asking. Now they ate in silence, which suited Valara just fine. The other Kryn warriors on the station did not make things easier. Commander Raxos, who led the military contingent, seemed to take particular pleasure in mocking her situation. "How is your gentle flower today, Princess?" he asked loudly one morning in the training hall. His cronies laughed. "Has he taught you any new gardening techniques?" Valara's scales flushed dark with embarrassment and anger, but she kept her voice level. "My personal life is not your concern, Commander." "Of course not," Raxos grinned, showing all his teeth. "I just wonder what the elders were thinking. They could have chosen a human warrior, at least. Someone with honor. Instead, they gave you a man who plays in dirt. Valara wanted to challenge him right there, but that would only prove his point." She finished her training in cold silence and left. That afternoon, she found Daniel in the garden as usual. He was transplanting something, his hands deep in soil. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "Good training session?" he asked. "How would you know if it was good or not?" The words came out harsher than she intended. "You have never trained a day in your life." Daniel's smile faded slightly. He returned to his work. "You are probably right." She almost left, but something made her stay. Maybe it was the careful way he handled the delicate plant roots. Maybe it was the patience in his movements. "Why do you spend so much time here?" she asked. "Plants are honest," Daniel said simply. "You give them water, light, and care, they grow. You neglect them, they die. No politics, no complications. Just life trying to survive." "That sounds boring. Sometimes boring is exactly what you need." He finished transplanting and stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "Would you like to learn? I could show you how to tend the roses." "I am a warrior, not a gardener." "You can be both," Daniel said. "Skills do not erase other skills." Valara left without answering. But his words stuck with her. Weeks passed. The routine continued. Training, meals, silence. But Valara found herself noticing small things about Daniel that she had missed before. His movements, for example. When he walked, there was no wasted motion. Every step was placed with precision. When he reached for things, his hands moved in straight, efficient lines. It was subtle, easy to miss, but once she noticed it, she could not stop seeing it. Then there were the scars. She glimpsed them one day when he was working in the garden, his sleeves rolled up. Thin white lines crossed his forearms, not the random scars of accidents, but deliberate patterns. Surgical scars, perhaps, or something else. "Where did you get those?" she asked, pointing. Daniel looked at his arms and quickly rolled his sleeves back down. "Old injuries."
"Nothing important."
"They look like blade marks." "I was not always a gardener, Princess." His voice was still gentle, but there was something underneath it now. Something that made her scales prickle with instinctive wariness. "What did you do before?" "I served," Daniel said simply. "Just like you serve now. We all have our duties." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I can give right now." He met her eyes, and for just a moment, she saw something deep in them. Something cold and far away. Then he smiled, and it was gone. "The past is finished. I prefer to focus on what grows, not what has already died." The conversation bothered Valara for days afterward. She started watching Daniel more carefully, the way he could sit perfectly still for long periods, the way his eyes tracked movement even when he seemed relaxed, the way he always positioned himself with his back to walls and clear views of exits. These were not the habits of a simple gardener. One evening, trouble found them in the station's common area. 3 traders from a rough merchant clan had been drinking. They were loud and aggressive, the type who looked for fights when they were bored. One of them noticed Valara and Daniel sitting together. "Look at that," the leader said loudly. "A Kryn princess married to a human pet. I heard about you too. The arranged marriage for peace. How sweet." Valara's hand moved toward her blade, but Daniel's hand gently covered hers. "Ignore them," he said softly. "I am not ignoring insults to my honor. They are drunk and stupid, not worth your time." The traders moved closer. The leader leaned on their table. "What is wrong, human? Too scared to defend your wife's honor? Or maybe Kryn females do not need defending because they are the real warriors in the relationship." Daniel looked up at the trader. His expression was completely calm. "You are correct. My wife is a formidable warrior. She could defeat you in seconds. But she will not, because you are beneath her notice. I suggest you go sleep off the alcohol before you embarrass yourself further." The trader's face reddened. "You dare speak to me like that?" "I just did." Daniel's voice remained perfectly level. "And I am giving you a chance to walk away with your dignity. I recommend you take it." Something in Daniel's tone made the trader hesitate. His friends pulled at his arm, suddenly looking less confident. After a tense moment, they left, muttering curses. Valara stared at Daniel. "You could have let me handle that." "I know, but violence should be the last option, not the first. You talk like someone who knows violence well." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps I do, but that does not mean I have to choose it when words work just as well." That night, Valara lay in her quarters thinking about her strange husband. He was not what she expected, not weak exactly, but something else. Something she could not quite understand. She fell asleep wondering what Daniel Cooper was really hiding beneath his calm surface and gentle smiles. The emergency alarm shattered the morning quiet like breaking glass. Valara was already dressed and moving before the second pulse finished echoing through the corridors. Her training took over instantly. She grabbed her weapons and ran toward the command center. Daniel was still in their quarters, wearing his simple sleep clothes. "What is happening?" he called after her. "Stay inside," Valara shouted back without stopping. "Lock the door." The command center was chaos. Screens showed multiple Kryn warships approaching at attack speed. Commander Raxos was barking orders to the defense teams, his scales bright orange with battle excitement. "Report," Valara demanded, pushing through the crowd. "General Thane has rejected the peace treaty," Raxos said, not looking away from the tactical display. "He calls it cowardice. He is bringing 4 warships and 2,000 warriors to take the station and end what he calls the shame of alliance with humans." Valara felt ice in her stomach. General Thane was famous throughout the Empire, an old-style warrior who believed only in strength and conquest. He had spoken against the treaty from the beginning, but no one thought he would actually rebel. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 20 minutes, maybe less. Can we evacuate? Not enough time. We have 300 people on this station. Civilians, diplomats, families. We would never get them all to the ships. Raxos turned to face her, and for once there was no mockery in his expression. "We fight, Princess. We hold them as long as we can and hope reinforcements arrive in time." Valara nodded. She had fought in enough battles to know what "hold as long as we can" really meant. It meant most of them would die. "I will fight beside you. I would expect nothing less." Raxos actually smiled. "At least you will die like a true Kryn warrior, not hiding behind your human husband." Valara did not respond to the jab. There was no time. She took her position with the other defenders, checking her weapons and armor. Around her, warriors prepared for battle. Some looked excited, some looked afraid. All of them looked determined. The station shook as the first warship docked with brutal force. Then the second, then the third and fourth. Valara heard the cutting torches start to work on the hull. They would breach in minutes. She thought briefly of Daniel, alone in their quarters. Perhaps he was safer there. At least he might survive if he surrendered peacefully. The thought brought her an unexpected sense of relief. The hull breached with a sound like thunder. Kryn warriors poured through the gaps, roaring battle cries. The defenders met them with their own war shouts. The fighting began immediately, brutal and close. Valara fought like she had been trained since childhood. Her forearms worked in perfect coordination, her blade singing through the air. She blocked, struck, dodged, and countered. Around her, warriors from both sides fell. But there were too many attackers. For every one they stopped, 3 more pushed forward. The defenders were being pushed back, step by step, toward the station's core. Then Valara heard something that made her blood freeze.
Footsteps behind her. Calm, measured footsteps in the middle of a battle.
She spun, blade ready, and saw Daniel walking down the corridor toward the fighting. But he looked nothing like the gentle gardener she knew. He wore clothes she had never seen before. Dark gray and black, some kind of military uniform. It was old and worn, the fabric faded in places. On his chest were symbols and patches she did not recognize. A name tag read Lieutenant Commander Cooper, Special Operations. "Daniel, get back!" she screamed. "You will be killed!" Daniel did not respond. He walked past her like she was not there. His face was completely blank, empty of all emotion. It was like looking at a stranger wearing her husband's face. An enemy warrior saw him and laughed. "A human! Your husband comes to die with you, princess!" The warrior charged, blade raised. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but Valara saw it in perfect clarity. Daniel moved. Not fast like a panicked run, but fast like a striking snake. Precise. Inevitable. His hand caught the warrior's blade arm, twisted it with perfect leverage. There was a crack. The warrior's blade clattered to the floor. Daniel's other hand struck 3 times, so quick the movements blurred. The warrior collapsed. Daniel picked up the fallen blade and kept walking. What? Valara could not finish the sentence. More enemy warriors saw Daniel now. 5 of them rushed in together, thinking one human would be easy prey. Daniel flowed between them like water. The blade in his hand moved in patterns Valara had never seen. Not Kryn fighting styles, not any style she recognized, just pure, efficient killing technique. All 5 warriors went down in less than 10 seconds. The corridor went suddenly quiet. Everyone, defenders and attackers alike, stared at the human standing calmly among the fallen enemies. Daniel turned to look at Valara. His eyes were different now, cold, distant, like looking into deep space. "Please stay back," he said softly. "I do not want you to see this. But I cannot let them hurt you. Daniel, what are you? I am what I needed to be. Once upon a time." He looked toward the breaches, where more enemies were pouring in. "I hoped I would never need to be that person again. I am sorry." Then he moved forward, toward the battle, and Valara followed because she could not help herself. What she witnessed in the next 20 minutes would stay with her for the rest of her life. Daniel moved through the enemy warriors like death itself. Not angry, not cruel, just absolutely, terrifyingly efficient. Every movement served a purpose. Every strike ended a threat. He used their own weapons against them, their own momentum to throw them off balance. He fought without hatred, without rage, without any emotion at all. That somehow made it worse. This was not a warrior in the heat of battle. This was someone who had done this so many times it had become mechanical. Valara watched her husband clear entire sections of corridor by himself, watched enemy warriors flee from him in terror, watched Commander Raxos and the other defenders just stand and stare in disbelief. A new voice boomed through the station speakers. "I am General Thane. Who is this human warrior? Send him to me. I will crush him myself and show the Kryn people that humans are not to be feared." Daniel looked up at the speakers. For the first time since the fighting started, something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something colder. Where is he? Daniel asked Valara quietly. She pointed toward the main docking bay with one shaking hand. Daniel nodded and walked in that direction. Valara followed, her mind spinning with questions she could not begin to ask. The main docking bay was massive, designed to hold cargo ships and diplomatic vessels. Now it served as a battlefield. Bodies of fallen warriors littered the floor. Smoke hung in the air from damaged equipment, and in the center of it all stood General Thane. He was enormous even by Kryn standards, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales like armor plating. His 4 arms each held a different weapon. Behind him stood 20 of his personal guard, the best warriors in his fleet. They had formed a half circle, blocking the way deeper into the station. Valara felt fear grip her chest. She had heard stories about Thane her entire life. He had never lost a single combat. He had defeated champions from a dozen different species. Some said he was unbeatable. Daniel walked forward steadily, still holding the blade he had taken from the first enemy. It seemed almost pathetic compared to Thon's arsenal. So this is the human who has been killing my warriors. Thon's voice rumbled like an earthquake. You are smaller than I expected, weaker looking. Yet my soldiers run from you like children from nightmares. Explain this. They are smart enough to recognize danger when they see it, Daniel said calmly. You should be too. Thane laughed, a sound that echoed off the metal walls. You dare threaten me? I have killed more enemies than you have seen stars, human. I have conquered worlds. What are you? A gardener playing soldier? I was a soldier long before I was a gardener. Daniel stopped about 20 feet from Thane. And I am giving you one chance. Take your ships and leave. The treaty stands. This rebellion ends now. Or what? You will fight me? Thane gestured to his guards. You will fight all of us? If I have to. The certainty in Daniel's voice sent chills down Valara's spine. He was not boasting, not trying to sound brave. He was simply stating a fact, like commenting on the weather. Thane's scales flushed bright red with rage. Kill him, he ordered his guards. Bring me his head. The 20 guards moved forward as one unit. They were professionals trained to work together. They did not rush blindly, but advanced in formation, weapons ready, covering each other's positions. Daniel stood perfectly still until they were almost on him. Then he moved. Valara had watched Daniel fight in the corridors, but this was different. There, he had been efficient. Here, with room to move, he was like watching art and horror blend together. He went low, sliding under the first guard's strike. His blade cut through the warrior's leg in passing. He rolled, came up inside another guard's reach, struck twice. That guard fell. Daniel took his weapon, now holding 2 blades. The guards tried to surround him, but Daniel never stopped moving. He flowed from one position to another, always staying ahead of their attacks. When they struck, he was not there. When they defended, he found the gaps in their formation. 5 guards down, then 10. The others began to hesitate, their formation breaking apart. Daniel fought without wasted motion. No dramatic flourishes, no battle cries. To strike, block, move, strike again. Like a machine designed for one purpose. The last guard fell, and Daniel stood among the bodies, barely breathing hard. He looked at Thane. Last chance. Leave now. Thane's face twisted with fury. You dare! You kill my warriors, and dare to give me orders? He raised all 4 weapons. I will tear you apart myself, the general charged. Despite his size, he moved with shocking speed. His 4 arms whirled, creating a storm of blades. Any normal fighter would have been cut to pieces in seconds. Daniel simply was not there. He moved like smoke, letting Thane's weapons pass through empty air. The general was strong and fast, but Daniel was something else entirely. He was precise. Every dodge was calculated to the inch, every movement served multiple purposes. Valara watched in disbelief as her husband fought the most feared warrior in the Kryn Empire to a standstill. More than that, Daniel was not even trying to attack yet. He was just avoiding, studying, learning Thane's patterns. Fight me, coward! Thane roared, his attacks becoming wilder with frustration. I am fighting you, Daniel said quietly. You are just not hitting me. Thane made a mistake. He overextended on a strike, putting too much force behind it. Daniel finally attacked. He moved inside Thane's guard with impossible speed. His blade cut across the general's primary sword arm. Not deep, but enough. The weapon clattered to the deck. Thane swung with his other 3 arms. Daniel ducked, rolled, came up behind him. Another cut, this time to the leg. Thane stumbled. Stop playing with me. Thane spun, trying to catch Daniel with a backhanded strike. I am not playing. Daniel's voice was still calm, still empty of emotion. I am trying to end this without killing you, but you are making it difficult. The fight continued. Slowly, methodically, Daniel dismantled the general. Each cut was precise, designed to disable rather than kill. One by one, Thane's weapons fell. One by one, his limbs were injured just enough to weaken them. Finally, Thane stood on his knees, all four arms hanging useless at his sides, breathing hard. Blood dripped from a dozen shallow cuts. Daniel stood in front of him, blade held loosely in one hand. "You could have killed me," Thane said, confusion mixing with his anger. "Many times. Why did you not?" "Because I do not kill, unless I have no other choice." Daniel lowered his blade. "This war is over, General. Not because I defeated you, but because continuing it serves no purpose. Your warriors are beaten. Your fleet is outnumbered by the reinforcements that arrived 10 minutes ago. You have lost." Thane looked up at the bay windows. Sure enough, ships bearing the colors of both the Kryn Empire and the Human Alliance filled the space outside. The rebellion had failed. "Who are you?" Thane asked quietly. "What kind of human fights like this?" "The kind who learned violence so well that he grew to hate it," Daniel said. He reached down, offering his hand to help Thane stand. "The kind who would rather tend gardens than battlefields. But when I must fight, I fight to end things quickly. Mercy when possible. Force when necessary." Thane stared at the offered hand for a long moment, and slowly he reached up and took it. Daniel helped the massive general to his feet. "The treaty stands," Thane said, his voice heavy with defeat and something that might have been respect. "I will not challenge it again. You have my word." "Thank you," Daniel said simply. Valara stood frozen as medical teams rushed in to help the wounded. She watched her husband hand over his weapon to a security officer, watched him straighten his old uniform, watched the cold emptiness slowly fade from his eyes, replaced by something warmer but infinitely sad. He finally looked at her, and she saw the weight he carried. The burden of being so good at something he wished he had never learned. The medical bay was crowded with injured warriors from both sides of the battle. Valara sat in the corner, her weapons finally put away, watching the organized chaos. She had a few minor cuts that the medics had already treated. Physically, she was fine. Mentally, she felt like her entire understanding of the universe had been turned upside down. Daniel had disappeared after the fight. Security teams had escorted General Thane and his remaining forces to holding areas. The station was secure again, but Valara could not stop seeing the images playing over and over in her mind. Her gentle husband moving through enemies like a force of nature, the empty coldness in his eyes, the precision of every movement. She found him hours later in the garden section. He had changed back into his normal clothes, the old military uniform nowhere to be seen. He sat on a bench among his plants, staring at nothing. His hands were shaking slightly. Valara approached slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Daniel?" He looked up and she saw exhaustion in his face. Not physical tiredness, but something deeper. "Princess, are you hurt?" "Just small cuts. Nothing serious." She sat down beside him, leaving a respectful distance between them. "We need to talk." "I know." Daniel's hands clenched together, trying to stop the shaking. "I know you have questions." "Who are you?" The question came out softer than she intended. Daniel was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "During the expansion wars, before humanity made contact with the Kryn, we fought other species. Some were peaceful, some were hostile. The conflicts were brutal. Both sides did terrible things." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "I was recruited young into a special operations unit, the kind of unit that does not officially exist. We were sent to do the jobs that regular soldiers could not do. Infiltration, assassination, disruption. We were very good at it." Valara listened without interrupting. "I served for 12 years, Daniel continued. 12 years of sneaking into enemy territory, 12 years of killing people who probably had families waiting for them to come home, 12 years of watching friends die beside me. By the end, I had forgotten what it felt like to be human. I had become just a weapon, a tool the government pointed at problems." His hands were still shaking. "When the wars finally ended, they offered me retirement. I took it immediately. I wanted to be as far from violence as possible. I bought a small house. I planted a garden. I tried to remember what it felt like to create instead of destroy." "And then your government asked you to marry me," Valara said. "They did not ask directly at first. They hinted, suggested. Eventually they were honest. They told me about the treaty, about the arranged marriage, about needing someone who could handle themselves if things went wrong. Daniel looked at his plants. They promised it would be peaceful, just a symbolic union. I would never have to fight again. But you agreed anyway. I agreed because I was tired, Princess. Tired of hiding from my past. Tired of pretending I could forget what I had done. I thought maybe if I could help prevent a war, it would balance the scales a little, make up for some of the blood on my hands. Valara felt her anger from the past months melting away, replaced by understanding. You never told me because you did not want me to see you as a killer. I wanted you to see the man I was trying to become, not the soldier I used to be. Daniel finally met her eyes. I planted gardens because plants do not care about your past. They only care if you take care of them now. I thought maybe people could be the same way, that I could be judged by who I choose to be, not who I was forced to become. Scars on your arms, Valara said softly. Those were not accidents. Battle wounds. Reminders. He pulled up his sleeves, showing the thin white lines. I keep them visible to myself, so I never forget what violence costs. They sat in silence for a while. Around them the plants grew peacefully, unaware of the battle that had raged just hours before. Commander Raxos came to see me, Valara said eventually. He apologized. Said he had been wrong about you, wrong about humans in general.
He does not need to apologize. He does.
We all do. Valara turned to face Daniel fully. We judged your entire species by appearances. We saw your diplomacy as weakness, your restraint as cowardice. We never considered that maybe you choose peace because you know exactly how terrible war can be. Daniel nodded slowly. That is the thing most warrior cultures do not understand. The humans who have seen the most combat are often the ones who want it the least. We know what it costs, not just in lives, but in souls. Is that why you tried so hard to end the fight with Thane without killing him? Every person I kill stays with me forever, Daniel said quietly. I see their faces when I close my eyes. I wonder about their families, their dreams, everything they could have been if I had not taken their life. I cannot bring back the ones from the wars, but I can try to avoid adding more ghosts to the collection. Valara felt something shift in her chest. For months she had seen Daniel as weak, as beneath her, as an insult. Now she saw him clearly for the first time. A man carrying incredible weight with quiet dignity, a warrior who had become so skilled at death that he dedicated his life to growing things instead. The Kryn Empire received the full battle footage, she said. The High Council watched everything. They sent a message. What did it say? They are terrified. Valara almost laughed at the absurdity. The most powerful military empire in this sector of the galaxy is terrified of humanity, not because you build bigger ships or have better weapons, but because if one retired human soldier can do what you did, they cannot imagine what your active military is capable of. Good, Daniel said firmly. Fear can prevent wars better than any weapon. If the thought of fighting humanity scares both our governments, maybe they will work harder to maintain peace. You planned this, Valara realized. You knew the fight would be recorded. You knew both governments would see it. I hoped it would not come to that. But yes, if it did, I wanted it to send a clear message. Humanity wants peace, but we are not defenseless. Attacking us would cost more than anyone wants to pay. You used yourself as a demonstration. I used what I am good at to serve a purpose. Daniel stood up and moved to one of his rose bushes. The flowers were blooming now, red petals bright against green leaves. I told you once that I preferred to focus on what grows rather than what has died. I meant that. But sometimes you have to pull the weeds before the garden can flourish. Valara stood and moved beside him. She reached out slowly and touched one of the roses. It was softer than she expected. Will you teach me? She asked. About gardening, I mean. Daniel looked surprised. You want to learn? You said skills do not erase other skills. I can be a warrior and also learn to grow things. She met his eyes, and I think I would like to know the man you chose to become, not just the soldier you used to be. For the first time since the battle, Daniel smiled. It was small and tired, but genuine. I would like that very much. Over the following weeks, things changed between them. Valara still trained every morning, but now she spent afternoons in the garden with Daniel. He taught her about soil and sunlight, about patience and care. She taught him about Kryn, combat philosophy, about honor and discipline. They talked. Really talked. Not the shallow conversations of strangers forced together, but deep discussions about life and death, peace and war, who they had been and who they wanted to be. One evening, as they worked together planting new seeds, Valara spoke without looking up. I was wrong about you, about everything. You were working with incomplete information, Daniel said gently.
No.
I was judging without trying to understand. She sat back on her heels. I saw what I expected to see instead of what was really there. That is not how a good leader behaves. We all do that sometimes, but I should know better. Villara looked at him. My people value strength above all else. But watching you, I realized we had been measuring strength wrong. Real strength is not just the ability to fight. It is the discipline to choose when not to fight. The courage to be gentle when you could be violent. The wisdom to build instead of destroy. Daniel's hand stilled in the soil. That means a lot coming from you. I mean it. Villara hesitated, then continued. When this marriage began, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to me. A punishment. An insult. But now I think maybe it is the best thing. You make me question assumptions I never knew I had. You make me want to be better. You are already excellent, Daniel said softly. You just needed someone to show you that excellence comes in many forms. They worked in comfortable silence after that. Outside the garden, the station bustled with activity. Ships came and went. Diplomats negotiated new terms for the expanded treaty. The universe continued turning. But in the small garden, two people from different worlds planted seeds together and watched them grow. And slowly, carefully, something else was growing too. Something neither of them had expected when this arrangement began. Understanding. Respect. And maybe in time, something even deeper than that. Villara looked at Daniel's hands working the soil, strong and gentle at the same time, and smiled. She was married to a man who could cut down armies like a god of war, but who chose instead to nurture roses, and she was starting to think that made him the strongest person she had ever known.